Hey guys, Stealing Mankind here, and I just wanted to take some time today to discuss Final Fantasy XII now that the Zodiac Age has finally been out for a while. This won't really be a review because, to be honest, this is my favorite game in the series, and that certainly hasn't changed over the past 11 years. When this game initially released back in 2006, I was all but done with Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X was a huge disappointment for me, both in story and character, and 11 didn't draw me in because online gaming wasn't even on my radar. I knew absolutely nothing going in and decided to pick it up as all my friends were. The low expectations on my part may have been a factor, and maybe it's the nostalgia that makes me still love it playing the game so many years later. It could be a part of it, but I think there are also a lot of other factors that should put this game so high on my list, and why I think it's a game that is more important and should foster more appreciation than its current reputation provides. The setting is one of the most fascinating aspects of this game. Setting it in Ivalice, a world that in some form or fashion began development in the mid-90s, not only gave a familiarity to a subset of the fanbase like myself, but also allowed the team behind 12 a varied world history to build off of. It also introduced many elements of what modern open-world games have become. Square Enix did not single-handedly create open-world gaming, far from it, but went a long way to developing a blueprint that they still use to this day. Games like Final Fantasy XV and Nier Automata have roots in the foundation laid by Final Fantasy XII. The hunt system, with its interesting requirements such as a certain party makeup or weather, among others, was something that was wonderfully carried over into Final Fantasy XV and was one of my favorite aspects of that game. Also, the Gambit system was such a game changer. No other RPG had up to the point and has subsequently given you as much control over your party and their actions than did Final Fantasy XII. The Gambit system allowed you to decide every minute action and under what circumstances each party member performed said action. It both gave the player immense agency over how the battle would unfold, but could also be changed on the fly to allow for immediate alterations to your strategy. And I think that is one of the most overlooked aspects of the Gambit system. Many people saw it as a means to take player choice away in the heat of battle, but some, such as myself, saw it as a means to focus on the bigger picture throughout boss fights, such as marathon battles like Yasmat, the final hunt that famously had 50 million HP. With so many of the basics automated, the player could focus on the intangibles that could crop up without also worrying about what each player was doing in the meantime, or that they were simply waiting on commands. I understand that it was polarizing and why it was scrapped, and a much more common streamlined battle command has been used since then, but I think providing that amount of strategy was something brave and interesting that seems like a system that might appear in a much more niche title, yet was used in such a big franchise like Final Fantasy. It's also a nice addition in a game that happens in the same world as Square's much beloved strategy RPG, Final Fantasy Tactics. Okay, let's move on from the mechanics of the game and talk about the differences within the story and characters presented in Final Fantasy XII. The story in this game is something that I can do nothing but praise. It's a game based on political intrigue and maturity not seen before or since in the Final Fantasy universe. There are fantastical elements, sure, that appear later in the game, and the last boss is very Final Fantasy, but overall it feels much more restrained compared to, say, the over-the-top melodrama of Final Fantasy X. There are multiple cutscenes that are there for nothing more than political posturing and discussions on the machinations of the competing governments. The stakes are always high, but the game steers clear for the majority of its run on the giant world-ending event looming over everyone. The acting is top-notch, and for 2006 is quite possibly the best there was. Each character's voice performance was subtle and well performed, and some of the back and forth reminded me more of screen acting than it did vocal work. Each character, his or herself, are not simply archetypes as has been the case in many other games in the series. Their motivations and idiosyncrasies feel natural and not simply a means to fulfill a purpose within the story. I will add though that the main protagonist in 12 is one of the worst in the series. If you take Vaughn and Penelo out of the story, the events would barely change, if at all, and trust me, their absence would not be missed. They are the two weakest characters in an incredibly robust cast. Balthier would have been a much better choice for a lead character, or even the team's original choice of Bosch, but the choice to not use any of the characters at any point in the game being present makes it an almost non-issue. Which leads me to my few negatives about the game. Aside from the main character issues, there are a multitude of camera problems, especially if an enemy backs you into a wall, or if a room is on the smaller size, the camera will get caught and it's hard to find your place in there. This is something that was not fixed for the Zodiac remaster. One problem that was fixed was the speed of the game. Navigating through towns and maps as well as battle speed feels extremely slow on the default setting, then and even more now. However, there is a 2-time and 4-time setting in the Zodiac Age that is very, very welcome. It is a double-edged sword, however, because it can make movement so fast that it's hard to keep track of where you're going and where you are in maps that have a lot of turns. Unfortunately, the visuals of the game do not hold up well even with a new polish over them. That is the problem with most early 3D PS1 and PS2 remasters. They are fine enough to be passable, but the touch-ups do not feel like it did much to improve on what was there. CGI cutscenes hold up better, but still have a stiltedness that many of these types of scenes from the era had. Some of the visuals, like flying into the Pharos lighthouse, overlooking the end of the world, is an image that has stuck with me for 11 years and one of the most impactful images from my formative gaming years, no matter what the visuals look like. Finally, let's talk about the biggest addition to this remaster, the Zodiac job system. Originally here in the US, we had the license board and it was fairly homogeneous for every character. I personally know a lot of people that didn't like it because it took away the individuality of a build for each character if you simply filled out the entire board. I didn't have a huge problem with it because I like to overpower my characters and have them be able to do as many things as possible. However, the new system is the best of both worlds. There are 12 jobs to pick from initially for each of your 6 characters, such as White Mage, Knight, Black Mage, and other multiple hybrid jobs. This is pretty simple and it provides a class-specific license board, but once you advance the story a little bit, you unlock the second job for each character. This is where the complexities of building your party shine. If you want a Knight Mage that can also effectively wield samurai swords, have at it. An archer that is also a Black Mage in their own right? Sure, why not? The 6 classes you didn't assign to a character the first time can be assigned to any character as their second job. Why is this not a feature in every RPG out there? It's also a system that can be felt in what became Final Fantasy XIV with its job system and merging multiple jobs to become a different job. Overall, I think Final Fantasy XII deserves more respect and love than it receives, but this new version has done well, and I think it will bring an entirely new audience to experience all of the amazing things it has to offer. From the Game of Thrones style storytelling, to the more mature and developed characters, and the beautifully designed and realized areas within the game. Thanks guys for checking it out. Let me know what you think of Final Fantasy XII down in the comments, give me a like, subscribe, and check out my other videos. I'll be back soon. Bye.